Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
I am Luffy, Partner System Online, One Piece, by Veltoria. Died in sleep, reborn as a child Luffy. No crew, no powers, just pain and a grindy system. To grow stronger, he must level up others. Each powered-up partner unlocks anime abilities. Fairy tale magic, soul blades, one-hit swords. With friendship, Hellgarp training, and a game UI, he's grinding his way to Pirate King in a darker One Piece world. Adios. Bittersweet.
Arlong frowned slightly, turning his gaze to the child standing not far ahead, Luffy. Despite his senses being far superior to those of any human, he hadn't noticed when this child appeared. That stone which shattered his gun clearly came from the boy's direction. Discarding the broken grip of his pistol, Arlong focused his full attention on Luffy. His idol and former leader, Fisher Tiger, had once risked everything to return a human girl slave to her home. In return, the girl's family betrayed him to the Marine, who surrounded him. Though Tiger managed to escape, he later died from blood loss. Since that day, Arlong had harbored a deep hatred for humans, especially human children. "Who are you, kid?" Arlong asked in a low, dangerous voice. Luffy only smiled, saying nothing. At that moment, he was busy counting how many fish men were present. He needed to make sure none of them escaped, a lesson learned from past experiences. As for the remnants of the ransacked pirates, Luffy had let them go. Upon seeing a much larger pirate ship docked in the harbor, he had allowed the survivors to take their ship and leave. Whether they chose to remain pirates or return to peaceful lives wasn't Luffy's concern. Having just escaped death, Belmere slowly opened her eyes. Still disoriented, she couldn't tell if she was alive or dead. Her body suddenly gave out, and she collapsed to the ground. The cigarette between her lips fell and rolled a few times, its smoke still curling faintly. "Aunt Belmere! Belmere!" Nami and Nojiko ran to her side, hugging her tightly and crying. "You girls!" Held close in their arms, Belmere felt their warmth and love bring her strength back. "This is bad." Seeing Arlong and his crew closing in on Luffy, Belmere suddenly panicked. She had no idea what had just happened, only that it was this boy who stopped Arlong from killing her. She couldn't let an innocent child die. Belmere quickly released Nami and Nojiko, picked up the cigarette still burning on the ground, and stood up. "Hey, you damn pirates!" She stepped forward, intending to stop Arlong and his crew. A hand suddenly grabbed her arm. It was Genzo, still bleeding from his wounds. He shook his head and said weakly, "Don't act rashly, Belmere. That kid doesn't seem ordinary." By now, Arlong's group had surrounded Luffy, forming a circle as if to prevent him from escaping. Each fish man stood over 2 meters tall. In comparison, the still-growing Luffy wasn't even as thick as their legs. "Hey, brat, didn't you hear our boss talking to you?" barked one of the fish men, a blue-skinned, long-lipped creature resembling a kissing fish. This was Chu, one of the 3 top officers of the Arlong pirates. As Chu drew closer, towering over him, Luffy remained smiling. He didn't speak, his greedy gaze swept across Chu with unabashed curiosity. "Damn kid, that look." Chu was reminded of those hateful nobles who had once enslaved his people. The same exact eyes. "I'll kill you." Chu raised his fist high and slammed it down toward Luffy with full force, not caring if the boy would be crushed into pulp. Belmere broke free from Genzo and tried to rush forward to save Luffy. Even knowing it was futile, her sense of justice wouldn't let her stand by. "Bastard! Stop it!" She grabbed a stone with her good arm and hurled it at Arlong's group. But it was all too late. Chu's punch landed squarely. Boom! A muffled thud echoed, raising a thick cloud of dust that blocked everyone's vision. The fishmen grinned, already preparing to mock the corpse they expected to find. Belmere shut her eyes tightly, tears streaming down her face. Her jaw clenched in anguish. "This is all my fault. I'm too weak, I can't even protect a child." "Belmere, look!" Nami shouted suddenly. Her sixth sense had told her something was off from the beginning. Unlike the others, she didn't look away, she kept her eyes fixed on the dust cloud. The dust slowly settled, and the figure gradually came into view. Luffy stood with one arm raised, blocking Chu's punch. Though his fist was only a fifth the size of Chu's, the fish man couldn't push forward another inch. Luffy smiled, calm and unfazed. Chu, however, was red-faced, hunched over, eyes filled with fear and rage. Luffy's smile faded slightly. With a swift twist of his waist, he pulled his other arm back, and launched a devastating punch. Chu, sensing the danger, instinctively stepped back. Boom! Luffy's punch landed where Chu had just stood. The ground split. Stones erupted like a geyser. The force blasted Chu into the air. The shards tore into his skin. Blood dotted the ground, and Chu's breathing weakened. He wasn't dead, but standing again would be a challenge. Under the clear blue sky, Arlong stared wide-eyed. His cold gaze cut like a blade. "You little bastard, how dare you hurt my comrade? Unforgivable." Watching one of his top officers get crushed, Arlong's face twisted with fury. Luffy glanced at him indifferently, then calmly walked out of the circle of fish men. They parted in fear, trembling as he passed. He stopped in front of Belmere and the others. Looking up at the taller, orange-haired girl, Luffy grinned wide. "Hi, I'm Luffy." That cheerful smile radiated warmth and safety, and for a moment, Nami forgot the Arlong pirates even existed, forgot the pain and the near death of Belmere. As if compelled, Nami reached out and shook his hand. "I'm Nami." "Ah." Nami suddenly pulled her hand back, remembering the situation. This wasn't the time or place to be making friends. Belmere was still bleeding. Genzo looked barely conscious. Luffy turned to Belmere. "Hey, miss. You're Nami's mom, right? How about we make a deal?" "What kind of deal?" Belmere was wary. Despite what just happened, she couldn't trust him yet, not someone with that kind of power who called himself a child. Luffy smiled. "Name's Luffy. I'm a pirate." As for the deal, his tone dropped coldly. The chilling edge in his voice made everyone instinctively tense. "Let Nami come to sea with me as my navigator. In exchange, I'll kill every last one of these fish men." "No." "Yes." Two voices, one large, one small, spoke at the same time. Belmere quickly pulled Nami behind her. "What do you want with Nami? I won't let you take her." But Nami peeked out from behind her mother, eyes glistening with tears. "I'll go with you. Just kill them all." Belmere tried to protest, but Nami grabbed her arm. "Please, Belmere, if we don't, we're all going to die today." Belmere looked from the terrifying fish men to the even more terrifying boy who had crushed them. She said nothing. Luffy grinned. "Then it's a deal. Watch out." Nojiko, who had been silent until now, suddenly shouted. "Bastard." Kriegfish man Karubi had finally snapped. Enraged that Luffy had disrespected Arlong and injured a fellow officer, he attacked without permission. Fish man karate. Taking a stance, Karubi struck at Luffy's head with a palm strike before he could turn around. Smack. Without even looking, Luffy raised one hand and caught the attack midair. He seized Karubi's wrist. "You dare touch my soon-to-be navigator." Bold. Luffy's eyes turned cold, and a menacing aura seeped out of him. The air grew heavy. A faint scent of blood hung around him. He pulled Karubi forward and clenched his other hand into a fist. Number 1. Splat. A headless fish man collapsed to the ground. Ding. The host has slain one fish man officer. Gained 890 express. The sound of that experience notification never gets old. Luffy flicked the thick blood from his fist as he spoke. Karubi. Arlong stared in disbelief. In just a moment of carelessness, one of his most trusted lieutenants had been killed. His eyes welled with tears. He remembered the days they had grown up together in Fishman District, how they dreamed of the surface world, escaped the clutches of slave hunters, and vowed to become stronger together. Then came the day they met Fisher Tiger. Arlong had led his brothers to follow Tiger in pursuit of their shared dream. After Tiger's death, Arlong and Jinbei had clashed in ideology. But these few brothers had stayed loyal and followed Arlong all the way to the East Blue. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! To think that a comrade who had bled and survived alongside him in the Grand Line, in the New World, would die like this, here, in some backwater sea. Arlong had come to this place to dominate humans, to return to them the pain and humiliation they had inflicted on his kind. Ah! Damn humans! I'll kill you! Blinded by rage, Arlong could no longer contain the fury inside him. He clenched his fists and charged at Luffy with explosive speed. His muscular arms, as solid as rebar, coiled with power and crashed down like cannonballs. Luffy tensed. Since setting out to sea, this was the first time he had truly gone all out. As Arlong's punch flew toward him, Luffy braced his legs. Boom! The ground cracked beneath his feet from the force, and then Luffy launched himself forward, even faster than Arlong. His small frame blurred, leaping up into a spinning kick. A full 360-degree turn, left leg extended level with the ground. That small foot slammed into Arlong's waist with terrifying force. His body crumpled inward, eyes bulged, face contorted. Arlong was sent flying. Boom! He skidded over 10 meters across the ground before coming to a stop. Boss Arlong. Big bro. No way. Arlong lost. Damn it. The fishmen panicked. If even Arlong couldn't beat this kid, then what kind of fate awaited them? Damn you. Damn human. Arlong staggered up from the rubble. Damn it. He rushed at Luffy again, swinging his fists. Luffy grabbed his punch midair, twisted his body, and flung Arlong away in the same direction he was charging. Boom! Arlong crashed again, his jagged nose gouging a deep trench in the ground. Not far away, Nami and the others watched as Luffy tossed Arlong around like a toy. Luffy stood his ground, looking down at the fish man sprawled before him. What's wrong? Lying down feels good. Damn human. Blood oozed from Arlong's split skin, but his fish man regeneration was slowly healing the wounds. He opened his mouth, sharp teeth gleaming more dangerously than any weapon. Even knowing the difference in strength, he couldn't give up. For Karubi. For his loyal brothers who followed him here. For everything they believed in. He had to fight. Die, you human brat. He lunged with his jaws wide, aiming to bite Luffy's head clean off. Eyes bloodshot, he was pure rage, no thoughts, just the drive to kill. Boom! Luffy's fist smashed into his face again. Arlong went down. Damn human. Boom! Damn human. Crash. Damn. Thud. Again and again, Arlong rose, only to be knocked down, beaten, sent flying, and slammed into the earth. The surrounding fishmen wanted to help their boss. But the sheer shockwaves of the fight were so intense they could barely stay standing. 10 minutes passed. Boom! Arlong collapsed to the ground once more. Covered in blood, he pushed off with one arm, trying to rise. His other hand clutched his knee. He had taken a brutal beating, his mind foggy, body failing. Only his will kept him moving. D-damn, H-human. Luffy stared at him coldly. Arlong staggered to his feet and threw a punch. But his eyes were so clouded, he couldn't even gauge the distance properly. His fist swung into empty air, and the momentum sent him crashing into the dirt. Luffy casually picked up a long sword that had fallen nearby during the chaos. He walked over to Arlong, blade dragging behind him and leaving a deep groove in the soil. Arlong propped himself up, eyes barely able to focus on Luffy and the weapon in his hand. His mental power still burned, but his body had reached its limit. Tears welled in Arlong's eyes. His voice was choked with blood as he cried. Damn you, human. Luffy stood above him, expression calm. For the first time since their fight began, his face showed no amusement or mockery. He spoke in the tone of a teacher addressing a failing student. Arlong, don't you get it yet? Arlong's cloudy eyes flickered with confusion. It's not humanity that's truly detestable. It's weakness. 2 streams of tears rolled from Arlong's eyes, soaking into the earth below. He used the last of his strength to turn over and lay on his back, arms spread wide. He stared up at the clouds. The sun over the sea, it's beautiful, he murmured. Luffy knelt beside him, placing a hand gently over Arlong's eyes and closing his lids. Please, I beg you, let the others go, Arlong whispered hoarsely. Sorry, Luffy replied, voice low and flat. I made a promise to my navigator, not a single fish man here leaves alive. Arlong's mouth twitched. Bloodied tears seeped from beneath Luffy's hand, trickling down his cheeks and onto the earth. I'm sorry, everyone. Schlunk. The sword pierced Arlong's chest, straight through his heart. He had already lost too much blood, so barely any spilled. Big bro. Boss. The fishmen collapsed to their knees, weeping in anguish. From the slums of Fishman district to this place, Arlong had always been their pillar, the one who gave orphans like them a future. Because of Arlong's decision, they had seen the world beyond the sea. With his death, their world shattered. Ding. Host has slain a bounty target pirate. Gained 1350 express. Ding. Host has met requirements. Shop system unlocked. Ding. Host has slain a bounty target pirate. Gained 3000 gold coins. The weather was getting hotter, and the noonday sun spilled down over the earth in golden sheets. Luffy pulled the long sword from Arlong's chest. Second one, he said casually. He glanced at the fishmen still crouched on the ground, grieving. Then he turned his head toward Nami in the distance and said, "There are 138 fishmen total. Once I finish killing them, you'll officially be my navigator." What? Nami and the others were still reeling from Luffy's overwhelming strength, unable to fully process his words. Without repeating himself, Luffy vanished from his spot, reappearing next to a nearby fishman. With one clean swipe to the throat, the fishman dropped dead. The system's familiar chime echoed in Luffy's mind. He glanced at his experience bar, 2,553 thousandths. Another few kills and he'd level up again. Excitement bubbled in his chest. Each fishman gave him over 200 express. Killing them all would net him somewhere between 20,000 to 30,000 EXP. He might even hit level 20 soon. With that thought in mind, Luffy kept going. A punch, a slash, a stab. Every strike claimed another life. The Arlong pirates were now leaderless. Their captain was dead. Karubi was a headless corpse. Chu was beaten half to death. Only Hachi the octopus fish man remained, and even he lacked the strength to properly face Luffy. But as the last remaining officer of the Arlong pirates, he had no choice but to step up. Clang! Just as Luffy was about to execute a fleeing fish man, his sword was suddenly blocked. Hachi, using his signature six-sword style, deflected the attack. Oh! Trying to cut in line. Luffy dropped his sword with a shrug and raised his fists. Fine by me. Terror flickered in Hachi's eyes as he nervously said, I won't let you slaughter my comrades like this. Then we'll see if you've earned the right to stop me. Before the last syllable even left his mouth, Luffy vanished. Hachi only saw a blur, and then felt a sharp pain in his leg. Boom! He dropped to his knees. Looks like you're not quite qualified, Luffy said coolly. Before Hachi could react, Luffy had already closed the distance again, his fist raised high. In that instant, Hachi knew what was coming. Tears welled in his eyes. Staring at the approaching demon, Hachi was suddenly reminded of the slaver squads from his childhood. Back then, he had been just as helpless, just as weak. All he could do was cry. Wait, how had he survived back then? That's right. It was Big Brother Arlong, he and the others had chased the slavers away. Since then, Hachi had followed Arlong without question. Big Bro Arlong. Luffy's fist came closer. Hachi saw his reflection in those eyes, pathetic and small, just like when he was a child. But then, he noticed something. What was that on his forehead? No, not his forehead. The sun. The mark of the Sun Pirates. Clang. Luffy looked surprised as Hachi blocked the punch with his swords. Didn't think you'd keep up. With all his strength, Hachi shoved Luffy back. Luffy flipped through the air and landed smoothly. Hachi stood, six swords forming a defensive stance. You're not getting past me, unless you kill me. Luffy glanced at the fleeing fishmen. Time was running out. Fine, no more holding back. He launched forward again. Hachi swung his swords to meet Luffy's fists. Though Luffy's fists looked soft and rubbery, each strike rang out, clang, 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 as if they were made of steel. He ignored the damage, tanking every slash with brute force. Clang. Finally, in a brief lapse in Hachi's stamina, Luffy struck. A heavy punch knocked one of Hachi's swords flying. Luffy followed up immediately, stomping hard on one of Hachi's arms. Ah! Hachi screamed but fought through the pain. With his 5 remaining hands, he attacked again. But 6 arms were no match for Luffy before, let alone 5. Luffy broke another arm. Crack. Then a third. Crack. Then the fourth. Sweat poured down Hachi's forehead. He gritted his teeth, enduring the agony. Without a hint of hesitation, Luffy crushed the 5th arm. I respect you, Luffy said sincerely, but I'm sorry. In a flash, he dashed forward, too fast for Hachi to react. With one final act of defiance, Hachi raised his last sword in front of his chest, smiling faintly. "Thank you, big bro Arlong." Smash! The blade snapped in two, clattering to the ground. Luffy's arm had pierced deep into Hachi's chest, straight into his heart. Splurt! He withdrew his arm, blood gushing onto the deck. Flicking the sticky blood off his hand, Luffy muttered, "I really need to get myself a decent pair of gloves. This is getting messy." He looked around. Not a single fish man still breathing. Great, now this is going to be annoying. Luffy hadn't expected Hachi to put up such a fight. The other two hadn't even lasted a single blow. He glanced at Nami and the others. All of them were staring at him in stunned silence. Feeling a bit awkward, Luffy scratched his head and offered a sheepish smile. Then he followed the fishmen's escape path on a run. Nami looked at Arlong and Hachi's corpses, remembering their final moments. After a moment's hesitation, she suddenly chased after Luffy. Nami, where are you going?" Belmir and Nojiko followed close behind. Genzo, too wounded to run, stayed behind to watch over the pile of corpses. Luckily, some of the fish men had stayed behind to check on Hachi. They hadn't gotten far. Luffy took them all out, one by one. By the time he reached the shore, he had killed another 20 or so fish men. Combined with Hachi's generous express bonus, Luffy hit level 15. As usual, he put his new attribute points into stamina. At the shore, he saw that the remaining fish men had already boarded the pirate ship and were preparing to sail away. Now he really panicked. He'd said no survivors, but 100 fish men were about to escape. Without another word, he leapt aboard the ship and continued his slaughter. Backed into a corner, the fish men grabbed weapons and fought back. They could have jumped into the sea to flee. But they were brothers. None of them wanted to abandon the others. Still, not one of them could survive more than 3 strikes from Luffy. By the time Nami and the others arrived at the shore, the ship was already littered with bodies. Nami, having never seen such a gruesome sight before, burst into tears. She saw Luffy still killing and shouted through her sobs. "That's enough." Luffy had already noticed her. He thought she had come to see if he'd truly killed them all, so he hadn't stopped. At her cry, his hand paused mid-twist, just before breaking another fish man's neck. Slowly, he let go. Everything went quiet. Nami, tears streaming down her cheeks, said again, "Stop killing. Please, it's enough. Please don't kill anyone else." Luffy was silent for a moment. Then he spoke. "Leave the ship. Swim away." The fishmen froze, unsure if it was a trick. "Do I have to say it again?" Luffy growled, eyes sharp. That did it. In a blur of movement, the remaining fishmen jumped into the sea, desperate to escape. Once they were gone, Luffy hopped off the ship and washed his hands thoroughly by the water's edge. His clothes were still soaked in blood, but at least his hands and face were clean. After cleaning up, Luffy jogged over to Nami. "Sorry about that," he said with a sheepish grin. "I thought you hated them." Despite the massacre, Luffy could still tuck away his bloodlust and flash that warm, sunny smile. It's fine," Nami stammered. She hadn't expected someone so fierce to not only listen to her, but apologize. "What a shame," Luffy said with a mockingly sad face. "Guess we won't be sailing together after all. Looks like our deal's off." Of course, most of that sadness was just for show. A small part was genuine. He was only a few kills away from level 17. But hey, in his past life he'd dated a few girls. He knew this push and pull routine always worked. It's not your fault. I was the one who stopped you, clutching the hem of her skirt. "So that means you're coming with me, right?" Luffy asked hopefully, though his tone left no room for doubt. Nami looked down, nodding, cheeks flushed. Belmir and Nojiko said nothing, but from the looks on their faces, they knew. Nami was truly leaving. Ding! Host has acquired a second crew member. Partner system unlocked. Please draw an exclusive item for your new partner. Night fell. Everything had finally settled down. Genzo and Belmir were taken to the doctor for treatment. Nami and Nojiko returned all the collected money to the villagers, down to the last belly. Meanwhile, Luffy made his way into the forest and dragged Zoro, who had been hidden beneath a pile of leaves, back to Genzo's house. He had already arranged it with Genzo. Luffy would stay at the house for the night, while Genzo recovered at the clinic. Strangely, even though Zoro hadn't eaten or drunk anything in a long time, his body showed no signs of deterioration. In fact, it even looked like he had grown taller, and his stats were steadily increasing each day. Even after being dragged across the ground, not much dust clung to him. And what little there was seemed to slowly shed away on its own. How's Zoro doing now? Is this normal? Now that things had calmed down, Luffy couldn't help but ask the system. Replying to host, Zoro is currently undergoing a transformation, shifting from a human to a mental power being. He is simultaneously influenced by both the physical and mental power particle realms. Zoro can now sustain himself by absorbing mental power particles from the air and no longer requires material nutrition. I see. Luffy tossed his dirty clothes from earlier and changed into the new outfit Nami had bought for him in town. Well then, system, give me a rundown of the shop system. Certainly. With the shop system now activated, the gold coin subsystem has also been unlocked. Host may now earn gold coins by defeating or killing individuals with a certain level of fame or rank. The higher the opponent's status, the more coins awarded. Additionally, once the host accumulates enough fame, a monthly allowance of coins will be granted. The shop is divided into two main categories: equipment and items. Each month, 3 random special items will be refreshed. Please explore them at your own pace. As the system explained, Luffy rummaged around Genzo's house, eventually finding a good bag of tea leaves and brewing himself a cup. Why was something this good hidden so deep in storage? He wondered. By the time the system finished its explanation, Luffy had settled into a chair, sipping his tea. So, when's Zoro going to wake up? We can't just keep dragging him around forever. Zoro is currently undergoing a highly unique trial. Estimated duration, 8 to 10 years. PFFFTTT. Luffy spat out his tea in a full-force spray. 10 years. Are you kidding me? All this for a Shikai. Further details are unavailable. Host is advised to be patient. Luffy slumped in his chair, one hand cradling his head, the other rhythmically tapping the table. Time passed slowly. Well, whatever. It's unexpected, but it doesn't really affect my current plans. With a deep sigh, Luffy shook off the surprise. Let's focus on this new feature for now. He pulled up the system interface and saw that the shop icon had changed from gray to full color. He tapped it. A large inventory window opened before him. At the bottom of the screen, a line of small text read. Gold. 3,000. This must be the reward for killing Arlong. Let's hope the price for the growth capsule isn't outrageous. Luffy shifted his attention to the available items. He opened the Equipment tab first. His brow furrowed. System, why are there only 6 pieces of equipment here? Answer. The equipment listed in the shop are partner equipment, and can only be used by partners. What kind of rip-off system is this? And what about my gear? I thought buying equipment was supposed to unlock the equipment system for me. Host's own gear will appear in the Random Items section. Please browse there. The system's explanations had been getting vaguer ever since Luffy left the beginner stage. Whether that was on purpose or not, he wasn't sure. Back in the shop menu, he noticed a new glowing icon next to Equipment and Items, a rotating wheel. He tapped it. A large prize wheel appeared, and immediately started spinning on its own. Whirl, whirl, whirl. In 3 swift spins, the wheel vanished and was replaced by 3 new icons. Luffy clicked the first one. Mjolnir, Hammer of the Thunder God. Origin, Marvel Universe. Effect, Melee, deals Strength 2 physical damage. Ranged, deals Stamina Willpower 3 lightning element damage. Only the host can wield it. No one else can lift the hammer. Price, 300,000 coins. Luffy stared at it, dumbfounded. This feels like a completely different genre. And that price. Was it even possible to afford that without killing Akainu and selling his corpse for scrap? Already sensing this system was full of traps, Luffy lowered his expectations and tapped the second icon. Zanpakuto, Hirenmaru. Origin, Bleach. Effect, grants access to sword meditation. Initial stage, deals willpower 2 ice element damage. Power scales indefinitely with mastery. Price, 500,000 coins. Yeah, super strong. Totally unaffordable. Next. Rainbow fruit. Origin, Toriko. Effect. 1 drop turns 25 cubic meters of water into rich, flavorful juice. Price. 1,000 coins. Finally, something I can actually afford. Not that it's useful or anything. Luffy sighed and closed the random item menu, then opened the Items tab. Inside were all kinds of health potions, express pills, and strange gemstones. He didn't check them all, he was focused on the one thing he wanted most. The growth capsule. At 3 years old, Luffy still wasn't even as tall as an adult's knee. Just looking up at people was starting to give him chronic neck pain. Luckily, there weren't many items in the store, and he quickly spotted it. Rapid growth capsule. Effect. Sacrifice 1 year of lifespan to gain all possible attribute growth for that year. Price. 2,000 coins. Luffy let out a relieved sigh at the price. Not bad. Totally worth it. System. Purchase 1 rapid growth capsule. Ding. Purchase successfully. Item has been added to your inventory. Without hesitation, Luffy pulled the red and white capsule from his bag and swallowed it whole. Nothing happened. No veins bulging. No muscle explosion. No shredded clothes. He simply felt taller. He compared himself to Genzo's table and estimated that he'd grown about 10 centimeters. Still a kid, but progress was progress. Yeah, it works. I'm finally getting taller. He hated being short with a burning passion. If 1 capsule costs 2,000 gold, and Arlong's bounty was 20 million, though his actual strength was much higher, then the system giving me 3,000 coins makes sense. That means, if I take down someone with a bounty around 20 million, I can afford 1 more capsule. With my current power, I still can't handle pirates over 100 million, but under 100 million. I can wipe the floor with them. No problem. The future looks bright. Feeling hyped and full of confidence, Luffy waved his hand dramatically. System. Give me a rainbow fruit. Ding. Purchase successfully. Item has been added to your inventory. I was kidding. Luffy quietly stared at the rainbow-colored fruit on the table. I wonder if anyone would fall for it if I claimed it was a powerful devil fruit. He let out a sigh. Impulse really is the devil. With another regretful breath, Luffy put the rainbow fruit back into his inventory. There were more important things to focus on now. System. Open Nami's status screen. Affirmative. A character interface appeared before Luffy's eyes. Character. Nami. Aptitude. SS. Stamina. 4. Strength. 2. Agility. 6. Mental power. 104. System. What does the next to her potential mean? Answer. The plus sign indicates that the character possesses an extremely rare hidden talent. However, it does not increase stat bonuses on its own. A hidden talent, huh? That must be her weather manipulation ability, Luffy muttered, rubbing his chin. Still, it's kinda weird that Zoro doesn't have top-tier talent as a swordsman. Reply. With Zoro's determination and strength, he could reach the pinnacle of any field he chooses. He became a swordsman not because of talent, but because he chose that path. That's so Zoro, Luffy said, glancing at the unconscious swordsman still sprawled on the floor. A guy destined to succeed no matter where he goes. Having someone like that as an ally, Luffy felt he had to work even harder. System. Draw Nami's exclusive item. A large spinning wheel appeared again, filled with all kinds of strange items, most of which Luffy didn't recognize. The only familiar one was Thor's hammer, which had shown up before in the random item draws. The wheel spun rapidly. Eventually, the pointer landed on a glowing crystal. Ding! Congratulations, host has obtained the Sky Dragon Slayer Magic Crystal. Item stored in inventory. Dragon Slayer Magic Crystal. A sense of unease crept up Luffy's spine. He quickly opened his inventory. Sky Dragon Slayer Magic Crystal. Effect. Grants the user Sky Dragon Slayer magic from the world of fairy tale. Converts the user's physique into a dragon type, enabling them to kill dragons. Can be inherited either through direct teaching from a dragon or by implanting a magic-infused crystal in the body. Sky magic, huh? Luffy recalled that in fairy tale, Sky Dragon Slayers didn't seem to suffer motion sickness like others. Note. Wendy from Fairy Tail didn't experience transportation sickness because her magic was still weak. However, the Sky Dragon Slayer crystal in this system has no such side effects. The user will be granted the magic without adverse effects. Luffy's emotions shot up and down like a roller coaster. Thank goodness, it'd be a disaster if my navigator couldn't even set sail. With everything sorted, it was time to get some rest before the next journey. Luffy closed the system interface and entered Genzo's bedroom to sleep. A few moments later, he came back out, lifted Zoro from the floor, placed him on the couch, and returned to bed. Night fell quietly. The villagers hadn't even had time to process Arlong's arrival before they'd already been saved. Nami and Nojiko kept watch beside Belmere's bed. "You should rest, Belmere," Nami said softly. Belmere kept her gaze fixed on Nami's face, refusing to look away. "He left the Fishmen's pirate ship behind on purpose. I think he plans to set sail very soon." She pulled out a cigarette from her pocket. The doctor said no smoking. Nami began to protest, but Nojiko handed over a match from the other side. Belmere lit the cigarette and took a deep drag. The soft scent of smoke drifted through the room. It was going to be a long, sleepless night. The next morning, a gentle breeze swept through the peaceful Kokoyashi village. Tucked in a calm sea zone, the village enjoyed clear skies almost every day, and today was no different. Seagulls dived into the ocean and emerged with plump fish in their beaks, soaring off into the sky. Luffy woke up early, refreshed and energized. He made his way to the village clinic. When he opened the door, he saw Belmere half sitting on the bed, resting her hands on the heads of the two sleeping girls beside her. They had talked late into the night, about childhood memories, dreams for the future, Belmere's best dishes, and more, until the girls finally dozed off. Belmere had stayed there, watching over them in silence until dawn. Nami and Nojiko stirred awake at the sound of the door. "Ah," Luffy peeked in, scratching his head awkwardly when he realized they were still waking up. "Sorry. I didn't mean to wake you." Belmere smiled at Luffy's bashful expression. Maybe if Nami followed him, she really would have a more exciting life. Wait, did he get taller? Nami and Nojiko slowly came to their senses, blinking away in a daze. I need to talk to Nami," Luffy said, standing by the door. Belmere's hand trembled slightly, then she gave Nami a gentle pat on the head and said with a faint smile, "Go on." Nami hesitated, glanced at Belmere, then followed Luffy out of the clinic. They headed toward the shore. People along the way greeted Nami warmly. They didn't know who exactly had driven the fishmen away, but they knew it was Nami who had returned their stolen money, house by house. By the time they reached the beach, the Arlong pirate's ship was still docked at the shore. Waves rolled in, slapping the hull rhythmically and causing the ship to creak and sway. "Nami," Luffy stopped and turned around with a grin. "As my second crewmate, I've got a gift for you." Nami had been spacing out, daydreaming about life at sea. Just her and Luffy, well, maybe also that green-haired guy who was still unconscious. But mostly just her and Luffy. Huh, what? Luffy's sudden turn startled her out of her thoughts. Luffy pulled something from his inventory. In his hand appeared a radiant, sparkling crystal. When Nami saw it, her eyes instantly turned into twinkling stars, and she nearly drooled. She hadn't suffered under Arlong this time around, but growing up poor had still left her with an unshakable love for money and shiny things. After all, what woman can resist glitter? Luffy, however, looked a bit awkward. "System, how do I use this?" "You don't mean she has to eat it, right?" He held up the crystal and shivered at the thought. To use, place the crystal on the person's forehead and mentally command, "Activate." That's simple. Perfect. Without warning, Luffy pressed the glowing crystal to Nami's forehead and mentally said, "Activate." Whoosh. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind whipped across the scenic coastline. Sand and rocks swirled into the air, forming a towering whirlwind. Even the sea surged into chaos as the pirate ship spun uncontrollably in place. The gale was so strong that Luffy had to retreat over 100 meters just to stand his ground. System. What the hell's going on? This is nuts. She hasn't even used the magic yet. Luffy shielded his eyes from the debris. Reply. Nami is undergoing a magical transformation. To help her fully adapt to Sky Dragon Slayer magic, she has been temporarily immersed in its energy field. Once the transformation is complete, her magic strength will scale with her personal stats. In that moment, Luffy seriously questioned whether he was even the main character of this system. Zoro had received a Zanpakuto, but would need 10 years just to unlock its Shikai. Clearly, it would become insanely powerful. Now, Nami caused a localized natural disaster just by awakening her magic. And he, the supposed protagonist, got growth capsules and tiny stat gains. Whose system is this, anyway? Minutes passed amidst the howling storm. Eventually, the wind began to die down. A soft green glow flashed in Nami's eyes as she gently floated back to the ground. Luffy, she called out, still a little dazed. How do you feel? Luffy approached. Villagers began to arrive, having seen the massive tornado from all over the island. Nami raised her hands, and the breeze naturally flowed toward her fingers. Luffy pointed to a large boulder that had been blown onto the beach. Try it out. Nami nodded, raised her arms, and focused the swirling wind into her palms. Sky Dragon's wing attack. She swept her arms like wings. The wind exploded outward in 2 arcs, striking the boulder with immense force. Boom! The boulder shattered instantly. Coincidentally, Belmir and Nojiko arrived just in time to witness it. They stood frozen, watching in disbelief. Was that one of those legendary devil fruits? Belmir murmured. Nami looked down at her hands, eyes sparkling with excitement. She looked like she couldn't wait to try again. Luffy quickly stepped in. Not now, we're setting sail soon. I need to get things ready. Already? That fast? Nami's excitement dimmed like a bucket of cold water. Yeah, time waits for no one. In truth, Luffy had been a little shaken. After all the blood, sweat, and tears he'd shed in the mountains, his own growth still lagged behind. If he didn't push harder now, he'd be left in the dust. I'm gonna go talk to Belmir real quick. Before Luffy could say more, Nami dashed back toward the others. Belmir and Nojiko were still in shock. I might be leaving this afternoon, Nami said quietly. Belmir blinked. So soon? Nojiko's eyes were already tearing up. Don't cry, Belmir said firmly. Nami's getting stronger. We should be happy for her. She turned away, not wanting Nami to see her cry, grabbed Nojiko's hand, and headed home to help pack. Elsewhere, Luffy wasn't paying attention to their conversation, he was too busy examining Nami's updated stats. Character: Nami. Aptitude: SS. Stamina: 188. Strength: 108. Agility: 136. Mental power: 400. Yikes. Luffy whistled. If another Arlong pirates showed up now, Nami could probably solo them with magic alone. Granted, she wasn't that powerful yet, but with her stats boosted by his passive character level 5, she'd be a force to reckon with on the seas. Luffy sighed, then curiously opened his own status screen. Character: Monkey D. Luffy. Level: 16. Express: 5,646 thousandths. HP: 5,220. Stamina: 522. Strength: 304. Agility: 300. Mental power: 490. To his surprise, his first awakening had been Conqueror's Haki. He was now itching to head out, take down some pirates, and make waves. He daydreamed about unleashing Haki across the battlefield and watching entire armies collapse. He was so absorbed he didn't even notice Nami walking back toward him, until he heard her footsteps. He quickly closed the status window and gave her a grin. But Nami looked a little down. When are we leaving? She asked. Luffy blinked, then remembered, I probably didn't explain that properly. We're officially setting sail in 10 years. I'll come get you then, and we'll stir up chaos across the world. Luffy's eyes sparkled at the thought of everything to come. But Nami's expression turned completely stiff. That afternoon, at Belmir's home, Belmir was tearfully packing Nami's clothes. Nojiko stayed quiet in the corner. Genzo came by with a basket of fruit. The doctor brought some medicine. The bookshop owner brought the book Nami had always wanted to steal. One by one, the villagers gathered in the little house. Creak. The door opened again. Nami stepped inside, glanced around at the room full of people, and awkwardly scratched her head. Luffy already left. Turns out, I'm staying for another 10 years. Note: Sky Dragon's Wing Attack is one of Wendy Marvell's signature moves from Fairy Tail. As a Sky Dragon Slayer, she uses this aerial technique to unleash twin arcs of wind magic from both arms, slicing through enemies with powerful, high-speed gusts. This way, I'm pretty sure this is the right direction. Luffy glanced at the compass and sea chart in his hands. On the map was a carefully marked route to Logia Town, drawn by Nami herself. All he had to do was make sure to steer correctly whenever he encountered the reference points. Let's hope we don't hit another storm this time, Luffy thought silently. He looked toward the cabin. Zoro was still fast asleep. Meanwhile, inside Zoro's mental power realm. Clang, clang, clang. Amidst the clash of blades, three figures danced, one large, two smaller. Zoro, wielding one black and one white Zanpakuto, was locked in combat against both Kuina and the beast. The surrounding land was scarred with gashes and craters. Boom! Zoro caught Kuina's strike with one hand and blocked the beast's full force, 9-blade combo with the other. He ducked low, spun in place, and slashed the air with both blades, unleashing twin arcs of force that pushed his opponents back. Phew, Kuina exhaled as she backed off and released her sword. You've gotten stronger, Zoro. The beast said nothing, silently withdrawing its clawed blades. TCH, Zoro clicked his tongue in frustration. He turned to Kuina. So, when exactly can I meet the third blade? Kuina was quiet for a moment before shaking her head. You're still far from ready. You've only just stepped into the realm of the Sword Saint. She looked up into the distance, as if sensing something far away. How long have I been here? Zoro asked while carefully wiping down the black sword. 58 days, Kuina replied. It's been 58 days since you fused with the Zanpakuto. That much time has passed in the real world. The beast remained silently nearby. Ever since its introduction, it hadn't spoken much, only training with Zoro in silence. 58 days, huh, too slow. Zoro gripped his sword tightly, lost in thought. Kuina smiled gently. Don't worry. Everything outside is fine. Your captain's been taking care of you. Besides, you've already started to grasp flying slashes. That's impressive progress by anyone's standards. Zoro looked up at the moon. It had been so long since he'd seen the sun. For anyone, but Luffy must be getting impatient. In the moonlight, Zoro caught his reflection on the blade. His hair looked a little longer. A silence fell over the three of them. I've decided. I want to try, Zoro suddenly declared as he stood. Try what? Kuina blinked in confusion. The beast, however, immediately understood. You want to meet the third blade? Absolutely not. Kuina snapped. You're still too weak. Seeing him now would do you no good. At the very least, I need to know what I'm aiming for, Zoro replied firmly. Besides, you're not really trying to kill me. Neither Kuina nor the beast had ever shown true killing intent. That was why Zoro dared to take the risk. Whether it was the beast, Kuina, or the mysterious strongest blade that had yet to appear, Zoro was certain they existed to help him grow stronger. After all, Kuina had been tirelessly teaching him this entire time. If he's meant to be mine eventually, Zoro thought, then there's no harm in taking a peek now. Kuina was about to argue further when a deep, ancient voice echoed through the realm. Let him come. It sounded like it came from another dimension altogether. Kuina bit her lip. Are you sure about this? The beast spoke suddenly. Perhaps we've been protecting him too much. You are his hope and dream, so you want to shield him from harm. But Zoro's never experienced a true life or death battle. That makes me useless. The beast ignored Zoro's confused expression and continued, failure is also a form of growth. Near-death experiences unlock hidden potential. You know this, don't you? Because you and we both understand him. Fine, Kuina said after a pause. As soon as she spoke, the world around them shifted. The moon vanished. Grass withered. A wave of desolation swept over them. In the blink of an eye, the three stood in a desolate canyon. Above them was only a narrow strip of sky. Towering cliffs surrounded them, too steep to see the top. The very air felt frozen. Kuina and the beast slowly faded from view, leaving Zoro alone. He looked around, curious. You've come. The ancient voice echoed once more. Zoro turned toward the darkness. A figure slowly emerged. My name is Asura. A tall, blood-red figure stepped forward. Bare-chested and muscular, he radiated overwhelming strength. He wore nothing but tattered straw shorts, his bare feet touching the cold ground. Behind him floated a golden halo, within it flowed a faint stream of blood, unnervingly eerie. "So, you're the strongest blade?" Zoro asked, taking up his two-sword stance. His gaze focused on the long blade at the figure's waist. It was a dark red sword, its hilt and blade emitting a sinister crimson aura. Asura unsheathed the blade and lovingly ran his hand over it. "The strongest blade? Huh. That title is in the past. Zoro, ever since you fused with the Zanpakuto, I ceased to be the strongest." Zoro frowned. "What do you mean?" Asura stabbed his blade into the ground and said slowly, "As you can see, I am a manifestation of your potential, a blade mental power born from your future. But only from a fragment of your future. The moment you fused with the Zanpakuto, I was born. But my strength was frozen at the level of your power at that time. I can never grow stronger. Meanwhile, you have limitless potential. One day, you'll surpass me. You'll cast me aside." Zoro furrowed his brow, puzzled by the strange melancholy in the mental power's words. After a moment, he said, "Sure, there are better and worse blades. But since you were born from my soul, that means you're destined to be a blade like no other." Asura's mouth curved into a smile. Then he suddenly burst into wild laughter. "Ha ha ha ha. That's more like it. You really are our master. In that case," he said, gripping his sword, "let's get to the point. Finally, time to fight." Zoro said, visibly excited. "Fight? No, this isn't a battle." Asura raised his blade and pointed it at Zoro. "You still know so little. You don't even understand your own potential. The world is vast. It's time you moved beyond this realm." He raised his blade high. "Feel this strike. This is the bare minimum required to wield me." The sword came down. A red slash a kilometer long erupted from the blade, moving faster than Zoro could react. It shot past him and tore through the canyon behind him. Boom! The mountains split in half. Boulders tumbled down the cliffs. It was a long time before the dust finally settled. Zoro stood, his face twisted in pain, sweat dripping from his chin. He forced a grin. "So this is what real strength looks like. Hey, that's exciting." Then his body crumbled into ash and vanished, as if he had never been there. Was this really okay? Kuina reappeared, staring at the spot where Zoro disappeared. "Relax," the beast said, also returning. "After all, he's the master of the three of us. Only by witnessing true power can he realize how far he has to go," said Asura, his voice calm. Then he turned and melted into the darkness. "Now it's your turn. Help him grow stronger, fast." A faint voice echoed through the void. "In the real world. Whoa, we finally made it." Luffy cheered as he clumsily docked the Arlong pirates' ship at Logatown's harbor. In doing so, he accidentally bumped another pirate ship, knocking it askew. Luffy dragged Zoro along and found an inn not far from the harbor. He booked 2 single rooms and paid for 6 months in advance. After all, the money came from Arlong's pirate stash, no reason to be stingy. The innkeeper, surprisingly, didn't try to cheat Luffy because of his young age. After all, he'd just watched Luffy haul something strange off a large pirate ship like it was nothing. In a place like this, no innkeeper was a fool. Luffy casually tossed Zoro into one of the rooms. Then, under the innkeeper's wary yet curious gaze, he pulled out his long-cherished bounty book, opened it, and asked, "Any of these guys around here?" The innkeeper immediately shook his head. Even if he did know, he'd never admit it. The next one to lose their head might just be him. "Sigh, guess I'll have to find them myself." Luffy stared at each bounty poster, visibly disappointed. "I gotta hurry. I'm this close to unlocking Conqueror's Haki." Just thinking about the cool aura of Conqueror's Haki had Luffy itching to grind more express. Smiling to himself, he opened his stats window, wanting to admire how close he was to breaking through 500 points. Mental stat, 476, almost. Luffy froze. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, then looked again. Mental, 476. System, get out here. What's going on? Answering host. Zoro's death within his mental power space caused a slight mental backlash, delaying your mental stat growth. However, rest assured this will not cause permanent harm. He will fully recover within a year and grow even stronger. PFF'd. Luffy practically coughed up blood internally. Zoro, oh Zoro, why do you always have to cause trouble at the worst times? I'm this close to unlocking Conqueror's Haki, and now this. He checked Zoro's stat panel. Sure enough, the daily increase in mental had dropped significantly. Are you sure this won't be a problem? Luffy asked again, frowning. Please rest assured, this will ultimately accelerate Zoro's growth. Well, okay then. Sigh. Looks like unlocking Conqueror's Haki at level 17 will have to wait. Luffy's previously excited mood cooled a few degrees. It's not that bad, I guess. Just gotta wait a bit longer. Whatever, still sucks though. He wandered the streets, heart heavy with disappointment. He was headed to the marine base to check for updated bounty posters, the ones he had were outdated. Luffy didn't believe those weaklings could survive for long, so staying current was key. The marine base was on the outskirts of town. As he walked, the crowds thinned. Fewer people, quieter streets. Luffy suddenly noticed something. He was being followed. Interesting, he smirked. Anyone tailing him was either suspicious of his unusual behavior, or a human trafficker. There weren't any real powerhouses in this town, so those two behind him had to be slavers. He'd been bummed about his stat delay, but now he had something fun to play with. Pretending not to notice, Luffy changed direction, turning into a quiet, empty alley instead of heading to the marine base. He slowed his pace, grumbling internally, "Come on, you two idiots." The streets completely empty. Still not making a move. Moments later, they finally did. One guy rushed up and clamped a cloth over Luffy's mouth and nose, scooping him up in one fluid motion. The other quickly opened a large snakeskin bag, stuffed Luffy inside, slung it over his shoulder, and started running. Their teamwork was flawless. Clearly not their first time doing this. Inside the bag, Luffy spat out the cloth. It had a strange anesthetic smell, probably some kind of knockout drug. Too bad for them, it didn't work at all on Luffy's body. He lay quietly, listening as the traffickers chatted. This makes 6 in this batch, right? Yep. The boss is gonna love us. We're definitely getting rewarded. Once we've made enough, we'll buy a ship and go look for the Pirate King's treasure. Gotta get a big one. Sail it home, show everyone in the village. Luffy listened to their wild dreams with mild amusement. About half an hour later, they arrived, presumably at the traffickers' hideout. He heard a strange knocking pattern, probably a secret code. Creak. A door opened. You got goods. Yep. Fresh one. Without another word, the gatekeeper let them in. Luffy felt them descend a flight of stairs. It seemed like an underground base. Eventually, they set the bag down and opened it. Luffy poked his head out. He's awake. Did you not use enough drug? One asked, confused. No way. I even used more than usual. Whatever. Doesn't matter. They grabbed Luffy by the collar and tossed him into an iron cage. Inside were 5 other kids, 2 boys and 3 girls, all around 5 years old, dazed and sluggish from drugs. Looking around, Luffy counted more than a dozen similar cages. Each held at least 1 child. Done yet? Came the gatekeeper's voice. Yeah, all set, they replied. Then hurry to the main hall. We're having a meeting today. Oh, right, on our way. The 2 traffickers tidied up their tools and left. Once the room quieted down, Luffy put both hands on the cage bars and gently twisted, creating an opening just big enough for him to slip through. Exiting the warehouse, he heard muffled voices from a distance. Perking his ears, he pinpointed their location and walked toward them. As he got closer, the voices became clearer. We need to lie low for now. My intel says the Marines are cracking down on small-time gangs like ours. Once we offload this batch, we'll run cargo for a while, keep it legal. But boss, someone said, we're just pickpockets and thieves. We don't know how to run legit business. Idiot. I said we're laying low. Don't invite trouble. Boss, maybe you could give me the buyer's contact. I'll take a few guys and keep this going while you lay low, another voice piped up, sharp and smooth. The boss growled, sounds to me like you want to split off and go solo. Not at all, boss, the sharp voice replied. It's just, the guys are used to the easy profits. If we stop cold, they might complain. Bang. The boss slammed his fist into the wall. Calm down, boss. Oh, right, I almost forgot the introductions, the sharp-voiced man said. He gestured to a hulking man beside him. "This is Bob the Butcher. Say hi, everyone." At the mention of Bob, the boss visibly paled. Bob stood slowly. The sharp-voiced man continued, "Brother Bob here's a pirate with a 5 million bounty. He's looking to earn some quick cash. When he heard about our business, he offered to be our guarantor. Go ahead, Bob, say a few words." Thud. Bob collapsed. Behind him stood a small boy, his right hand dripping with blood. "Why not let me say a few words instead?" Luffy asked with a sweet smile. Some time later, Luffy walked out of the Slavers' hideout and made his way to the marine base. He told an officer everything. Though skeptical at first, the marine remembered recent orders about cracking down on traffickers and decided to investigate. What he found shocked him: over 30 corpses in the main hall, and dozens of missing children rescued from underground cages. From that day on, Luffy's name was firmly etched in the minds of Logatown's marines. As word spread, more and more people came to fear the title, Demon Kid Luffy. Rumor had it that once he set his sights on someone, they wouldn't live to see the next sunrise. In a matter of days, Logatown's underworld vanished. Even pirates bound for the Grand Line began avoiding the port altogether. Note: for those wondering, any unfamiliar pirate names or crews mentioned are fan-made, not canon. They're created purely so Luffy can beat them up and farm some XP. The waters near Logatown. A massive pirate ship cut through the waves, laughter and cheers echoing across the sea. Cups clinked together as overflowing liquor splashed onto the deck. The air was thick with celebration, even the passing seagulls seemed slightly tipsy. A band of fierce-looking pirates were now basking in high mental powers. To celebrate the captain's bounty reaching 15 million, cheers. Cheers. One pirate raised his glass toward the man seated at the head of the banquet table, their captain. The rest of the crew followed suit, echoing with hearty toasts. The aroma of booze filled the entire ship. To the captain's right sat a sharp-looking man in a neatly pressed suit, thick glasses perched on his nose. He suddenly stood up. "Captain, we're heading straight toward Logatown." Adjusting his glasses, the suited pirate continued, "Rumor has it a dangerous bounty hunter has been active in that area. Some notorious pirates have already fallen to him. I recommend we play it safe and take a detour." Despite the warning, the captain, rugged and imposing, remained calm. He swirled the wine in his glass and gazed at the vast sea through its amber glow. After a moment, he muttered, "They say the 10 million bounty wild wolf met his end around there too. Maybe the rumors are exaggerated, but in these seas, caution is everything. First mate, inform the lookout to stay sharp for the next couple of days." "Yes, Captain." The suited man nodded and left the table. The next day, the sea remained a dazzling blue. The ship carved its path through the waves, carrying the dreams of every pirate aboard. On deck, dozens of men lay passed out, their faces flushed red from the previous night's celebrations. Even so, the ship sailed on. Not everyone had joined the party, those on duty were still manning their stations. At the bow stood the captain and first mate, gazing at the endless horizon. "We've come far," the captain said, a glimmer of ambition in his eyes. "Indeed, time flies," the first mate replied, removing his glasses to wipe them with a handkerchief. The captain laughed. "You know, back when I asked you to sail with me, you were dead set against it. But now, you're one hell of a first mate." The first mate chuckled. "That's rich coming from the guy who knocked me out and dragged me to sea while I was still a town guard." Bwahahaha. The two shared a laugh, their memories as bright as the rising sun they looked toward, just like their dreams. "Captain, first mate, there's a strange fishing boat following us," shouted the lookout. The two snapped out of their reminiscing and hurried to the stern. Sure enough, a small boat was rapidly approaching. Seated in the tiny vessel was Luffy, his arms spinning the oars at a speed so fast they were nearly invisible. The boat sped forward like it had an engine. After breaking 2 sets of oars during previous chases, Luffy had gone to the blacksmiths in Logatown and commissioned a pair of alloy paddles just for this purpose. Seeing the speed of the oncoming boat, the first mate's expression hardened. Realizing they couldn't avoid the confrontation, he immediately ordered the crew to gear up for battle. Pirates rushed to wake their drunken crewmates and ready their weapons. They weren't just relying on their captain's strength, Surviving on these seas for years also required the first mate's foresight and wisdom. Luffy's boat pulled up alongside the ship. He reached into the boat, pulled out a metal hook and chain, and hurled it at the ship's midsection, punching a hole through the hull to anchor the chain and secure his boat from drifting away. Grabbing the chain, Luffy scaled the side of the pirate ship in a matter of seconds. As he landed on deck, he was immediately greeted by over 100 fully armed pirates. Before Luffy could speak, the first mate stepped forward. A child's appearance, abnormal behavior, eyes that are impossible to read. You must be the infamous bounty hunter causing a stir lately, Demon Kid. Oh, you've got good eyes, Luffy said with a playful smirk. The first mate remained calm. If that's the case, might I propose something? We have valuables aboard worth at least 10 million. If they suit your taste, they're yours. It's not that we fear you, we just can't guarantee our crew won't suffer losses. We'd rather spend money than spill blood. First mate, we're not scared, we outnumber him. Yeah, the pirates shouted in defiance, itching to fight. But Luffy ignored their bravado. His gaze remained locked on the first mate. Where's your captain? Jurlson, right, the one with the 15 million bounty. He paused. I heard you massacred a village last month. That's what made your bounty skyrocket. A towering figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was Captain Jurlson. That was an accident. We only wanted some supplies, but a villager ambushed us and killed one of my men. It escalated from there. But this is the grand line, survival of the fittest. Surely you understand that. Survival of the fittest. Then you should have said that from the start, Luffy replied coldly. All this talking is getting annoying. In a flash, he dashed into the crowd, fists clad in gloves, striking mercilessly at the pirates. Blood and bodies flew as he tore through them with terrifying force. Jurlson's fury boiled over as he saw over 10 of his men fall in seconds. No more talk, he roared. Fight me, bounty hunter. With a scream, his body began to swell. Clothes tore. His arms grew thick and black, his head expanded, and a long horn sprouted from his forehead. He transformed into a massive bipedal rhino. Luffy's pupils narrowed. This was the first time since entering the pirate world that he'd seen someone use a devil fruit. Jurlson lowered his stance, horn aimed straight at Luffy. I've eaten the Uma Uma no Mi, model, rhinoceros. I am the Rhino Man. You chose to fight me, prepare for pain. With that, he charged. Thump, thump, each step shook the entire ship. Luffy had no time to dodge and raised his arms to block. As the horn slammed into him, Luffy caught it perfectly, holding himself upright. But Jurlson was prepared. Seeing that Luffy hadn't been impaled, he pushed his head lower, dragging the horn along the deck, grinding Luffy across the planks. Then, with a sudden upward swing, he slammed Luffy into the deck with bone-crushing force. Boom! The impact blasted a hole through the deck, sending Luffy crashing into the cabin below, where he lay still, unmoving. Is it over? The first mate asked cautiously, stepping forward. The other pirates had already backed far away, fearful of being caught in the crossfire. Captain Jurlson remained silent. Still in his beastly form, he stared at the hole in the deck, tense and wary. That kid's body, it hadn't felt normal at all. When his horn struck him earlier, it was like hitting solid steel. A sudden whoosh broke the silence as a sound came from below deck. Luffy slowly crawled out from the hole and stood face to face with Jurlson. He brushed off the dust from his clothes and said with a smirk. The Marines' intel division is useless. There's no way someone like you is worth just 15 million berries. Seeing Luffy completely unharmed, Jurlson swallowed his anger. He knew, facing an opponent of this level, losing his cool would only hasten defeat. Jurlson steadied his stance and locked eyes with Luffy. His expression was calm, though his brows were knit in tension. Luffy's demeanor changed as well. His gaze sharpened like a blade as he measured up his opponent. He's a zone-type devil fruit user. Big frame, probably just as strong as I am physically. He's not slow either, but his agility definitely lags behind mine. If I use that, I can win this. Luffy ran the calculations quickly in his head. Since his recent power-up, Luffy hadn't encountered anyone who could really challenge him. His fights had been one-sided beatdowns, his strength far outclassing any opponent. But Jurlson was clearly different from the usual rabble of the Four Seas. He had stayed under the radar, but he was no small fry. Decision made, Luffy didn't hesitate. He threw a straight punch aimed directly at Jurlson's eyes. True to his rhino nature, Jurlson didn't flinch. He extended a beast-like hoof, ready to match strength with strength. But Luffy's form shifted. His single fist became two hands as he grabbed Jurlson's wrist, planted both feet against Jurlson's stomach, and pushed off. In midair, Luffy twisted his body to face away from Jurlson, raising himself level with the man's head. Using Jurlson's arm as leverage, Luffy kicked off again and delivered a brutal double-footed blow directly to Jurlson's skull. Wham! Luffy landed smoothly and looked up at Jurlson, now embedded into the wall. Payback delivered, he said with a smile. Captain. Boss. Several pirates rushed over to check on Jurlson. The massive man groaned, slowly rising to his feet. Without a digitized body to absorb the damage, that blow had hurt. Shaking his head, Jurlson shoved the pirates aside, his face a thunderous gray. Without a word, he charged Luffy again with his rhino horn strike. But Luffy had seen that one already, and he wasn't going to fall for it twice. Predicting the move, he smoothly sidestepped the attack, dodging the deadly horn. Jurlson's speed worked against him. He couldn't slow down in time. Luffy circled to his side and delivered a crushing punch to Jurlson's waist. A sickening crack rang out. I win, Luffy murmured. Jurlson flew back, blood spraying from his mouth as he crashed to the deck. Cough, cough, lying in a puddle of his own blood, Jurlson choked on bile. His heart pounded in dread. He had always hidden his strength, not out of fear, but to remain unnoticed. He believed himself to be one of the top contenders in the 4 seas. His subordinates were weak, otherwise, he would have already set sail for the Grand Line. After the village massacre, he knew the Marine had him on their radar. Maybe they weren't taking him seriously yet, but it was only a matter of time. The world government would never tolerate powerful forces rising in the 4 seas. They had to maintain control. So, with the help of his first mate, he had planned to leave for the Grand Line before that day came. But before he could even reach the entrance, he'd been beaten within an inch of his life by this monstrous kid. Gritting his teeth, gasping for air, Jurlson stood again. He couldn't fall, not here, not now. He'd made a promise. They were going to carve their name into the Grand Line together. How could he die here? Waves roared in the background. Dragging his battered body upright, Jurlson lifted his massive fist and charged at Luffy once more. This time, Luffy didn't move. He raised his own fist and met the blow head-on. Boom! A massive crash echoed as fist met fist, splintering the deck beneath their feet. Boom! 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 They exchanged blow after blow. Jurlson's stamina waned, but Luffy, still going strong, each punch came with full force, unrelenting. The first mate's eyes widened in horror. He could tell, Jurlson was almost done for. If this continued, their captain would be dead. Jurlson, stop, please, he shouted. We surrender. We'll give him all our treasure, just stop fighting. But Jurlson didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The first mate and the other pirates couldn't sense it, but Jurlson could. Behind that harmless smile, Luffy was a devil, oozing bloodlust. Boom! After what must have been hundreds of exchanged punches, Jurlson's strength finally gave out. His movements slowed to a crawl, only his instincts and sheer will kept him standing. Luffy saw the moment. He stepped back. Jurlson swung into empty air, lost his balance, and collapsed. Luffy moved in. He gathered all his power into one final punch and aimed straight at Jurlson's temple. No! The first mate screamed, voice filled with anguish. Luffy didn't stop. Crack! The punch landed square on Jurlson's head. Such a shame, Luffy muttered softly. If you'd made it to the Grand Line, who knows what kind of future you might have had. Of course, he had no way of knowing. Had Jurlson lived, he would have become a powerful commander under one of the 4 emperors, Kaido. Ding! Congratulations! You have defeated a devil fruit user. Express gained, 3000. Gold earned, 5000. Ding! Level up complete. You are now level 19. Ding! You've unlocked a new skill, Conqueror's Haki. Conqueror's Haki allows the user to unleash a mental shockwave against any number of targets within range. Targets suffer mental damage equal to user's mental power 5, and minor physical damage equal to mental power 10. Range is determined by mental power stat. Targets with insufficient mental power may fall unconscious and suffer lasting psychological trauma. A flurry of system notifications flooded Luffy's mind. And with them, an overwhelming new sensation. It was as if he had always known how to use haki, his control over it felt completely natural. Thanks to Zoro's mental power recovery and his own level-up stats, Luffy had finally unlocked Conqueror's haki. As he stood silently with eyes closed, adjusting to his new power, the first mate collapsed to his knees beside him. Tears spilled from between his fingers as he covered his face. He and Jurlson had grown up in the same town, childhood friends. While he had risen to become the town's peacekeeper, Jurlson had been just a lowly thug. But that had never hurt their friendship. Then came the day Gall D. Roger was executed, and the Great Pirate Era began. Jurlson came to him, brimming with excitement, asking him to form a crew and chase the Pirate King's treasure together. He'd refused. A few days later, Jurlson knocked him out cold and dragged him to sea. From outrage, to resignation, to camaraderie. They had thrived together on the waves. And now, that same Jurlson, who had always shielded him in battle, was gone. The first mate sobbed until he couldn't cry anymore. Then, slowly, he rose. From his belt, he drew a pistol and aimed it at Luffy, eyes burning with fury. "I'll avenge Jurlson. Any man with a spine, follow me. Let's kill this bastard and bury him at sea." Bang! The gun fired. But Luffy caught the bullet in his palm. He frowned. This fight had already drained him mentally. He'd planned to spare these pirates, they weren't worth the effort. But then something flickered in his mind. His expression shifted. Without a word, an oppressive, regal aura burst forth, awe-inspiring. Overwhelming. Unshakable. Pirates who just moments ago were bracing to charge collapsed one after another under the crushing pressure. The first mate staggered, his vision swimming. He lifted the gun again, desperate to shoot. But his body was too weak. He stumbled, then with a dull thud, collapsed like the others. Something strange happened in Logatown today. For the first time in half a year, the notorious Devil Kid didn't leave a pile of corpses in his wake. Instead, he brought back an entire ship full of unconscious pirates. Alive. One by one, the Marines shackled the pirates and dragged them off the ship. Meanwhile, Luffy followed a Marine captain from the base to the Treasury office to claim Jurlson's bounty. Submitting Jurlson's corpse wasn't the end of the process, several formal steps still had to be approved before the payout could be released. Taking the opportunity, the captain invited Luffy to sit and have tea in his office at the Logatown Marine base. Inside the top commander's office, the captain handed Luffy a freshly brewed cup of tea with both hands, his expression filled with admiration. "Congratulations once again, brother Luffy. Another great pirate has fallen to your hands. It really puts the people at ease, having someone like you around to protect Logatown." Luffy casually took the tea and sipped it, replying nonchalantly, "You flatter me, Captain. It's just a mutually beneficial arrangement." Then he glanced meaningfully at the captain and added, "After all, you have never once delayed my bounty payments, have you?" "Ah ha ha. Of course not." The captain chuckled awkwardly. Half a year ago, Luffy had come here with the body of a minor pirate, only to have his bounty shorted on account of his age. Enraged, he punched the front gate of the Marine base clean off its hinges. The entire base had been thrown into panic. It was this same captain who later learned the truth and, unwilling to provoke someone that powerful, severely punished the Marine who had shortchanged Luffy. Clearing his throat, the captain tried to steer the conversation away from that unpleasant memory. He turned serious and said, "Luffy, have you ever considered joining the Marines and becoming a true defender of justice? I can't promise the world, but if you're willing, I'll personally request a transfer back to HQ and put you in charge here as the base commander." The offer was genuine. This captain was a rare breed, a good man who truly cared about the people. He'd recently heard whispers that HQ wanted to recall him for retraining and would likely send a new officer to replace him. But he knew all too well, most HQ officers were pampered elites. Real talents didn't get sent to small places like Logatown. During the past few months, he'd observed Luffy closely. Though ruthless to criminals, Luffy never harmed civilians. In fact, petty crime had nearly vanished from town since his arrival. Even pickpockets had gone quiet. What Logatown needed was exactly this kind of strong, fearless protector who could crush evil while still being kind to the innocent. The captain had hoped he could leave the town in Luffy's hands and use his seniority to push for Luffy's official promotion. Unfortunately, he'd chosen the wrong person. "Sorry, Captain. I'm used to traveling alone. I'll have to decline your kind offer," Luffy said firmly. The captain sighed. "I see. That's a shame." After another sip of tea, Luffy stood and said, "If there's nothing else, I'll be heading back to rest." The captain stood as well and walked him to the door, still unwilling to give up. "Well, if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." When Luffy reached the treasury office, the reward money was already prepared and waiting. With a heavy bag of coins in hand, Luffy made his way toward the inn near the harbor. Outside the inn, he happened to see the innkeeper just about to head out. "Hey, boss," Luffy called. "Our room rental should be almost up, right?" "Perfect timing. I was just thinking of packing up and leaving." The innkeeper panicked. Wait. Luffy, why are you leaving? If you're not satisfied with your room, just say the word. Pick any room you want, it's yours, free of charge. He was genuinely frantic. Ever since people found out the infamous Devil Kid lived here, his inn had been crowned the finest in Logia Town. Luffy only killed criminals. To the townspeople, especially small business owners, Luffy was practically a guardian deity. If their protector left because of poor hospitality, the innkeeper would never forgive himself. "It's not about the inn. I just have things to take care of elsewhere. I'll probably leave tonight," Luffy explained. Hearing this, the innkeeper could only hang his head. "I understand." That evening, Luffy finished packing, carrying a few new sets of oversized clothes he'd bought that afternoon and slinging the bag containing Zoro over his shoulder. He made his way to the harbor's shipyard. For the past 6 months, he'd been selling off captured pirate ships to this same dock. By now, his savings had reached nearly 50 million berries. The moment he stepped into the yard, he saw the old shipwright he'd dealt with many times. When the old man heard that Luffy wanted a small sailboat, he didn't even hesitate, he gave one to him for free. "If you try to pay me, I'll take it as an insult," the old man said with a grin. And just like that, Luffy boarded a gifted boat and set sail for his hometown. Night fell. Stars dotted the sky, and the harbor lights shimmered on the sea's surface. A massive full moon hung high overhead, casting a silver glow over the tranquil, windless water. Luffy adjusted the rudder and set his course, then stepped inside the cabin. "System, how much gold do I have now?" "Current balance, 6,300 gold coins." 6,003, huh? He glanced at the dark gray equipment tab. "Sigh, looks like I won't be getting any decent gear anytime soon." The cheapest item he'd seen in the random item shop had been a Doran's ring, just last month. It cost a whopping 5,000 coins and only gave 100 mental power. "Buy me 3 rapid growth capsules." Purchase successful. Items have been placed in your inventory. Luffy took out the capsules, stripped off his clothes, and downed all 3 in one gulp. This time, he felt it clearly, his body was growing. I should be around 1.34 meters tall now," he muttered to himself, measuring against a mark inside the cabin. He picked out a deep blue tank top and a pair of stylish light yellow shorts. With his youthful grin and calm eyes, a charming young heartthrob had just been born. Makino and the others are going to be so surprised, ha 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 ha. Just thinking about seeing the village chief and Makino again made Luffy smile warmly. It had been a whole year. The night sky stretched out endlessly, mysterious and vast, just like the calm, moonlit sea. And so, cradled in memories and anticipation, Luffy drifted peacefully into sleep.